I knew something was off when the espresso machine at Farewell sputtered like it was choking on secrets. The whole floor buzzed with a weird kind of silence, fake smiles, stiff nods, and that one guy from accounting whistling too loudly like he was trying to cover up a fart in church. But I shook it off. I had bigger things to think about. After 16 months of dragging this Frankenstein of a product from napkin sketches to a full-fledged federal contract machine, launch day had finally arrived. $180 million on the line. 5 partner orgs on standby. 3 regulatory bodies giving us the nod. And every single executive's eyes, at least the ones not surgically stitched to their egos, were supposed to be on me. Boardrooms prepped, 9 a.m. sharp, my assistant Jamie reminded me as I passed his desk, coffee in one hand, USB drive in the other. You look too pale for someone who usually handles Mondays like a champ. You sure about that? I asked, squinting at his face. The kind of face that says, I know something I'm not allowed to say, but I'll definitely cry in the bathroom about it later. He blinked. That's what Preston said. You'll be presenting from deck 6, the red-lined one. Good, I nodded, tapping the flash drive like it was a detonator. Everything's been finalized in the secure version. Red lines, disclosures, partner-specific breakdowns. Then he hesitated. Hey, Olivia, weird question. Why'd you keep clause 6.4 in your contract anyway? Most execs strip that out. I paused mid-step. Habit, I said with a half smile, like double knotting your shoes. You never think you'll need it until you're sprinting. Oh, and before I forget, since you're clearly invested enough to be eavesdropping on my little corporate crime thriller here, how about smashing that like button and subscribing? 90% of you are ghosting the stories without commitment. And frankly, that's more painful than watching my ex-boss try to pronounce infrastructure. Do it for my team. Do it so I don't have to beg like some overworked LinkedIn influencer. Anyway, back to the chaos. I spent the next 20 minutes in my office reviewing everything again. Not because I didn't trust my own work. I don't get this far in corporate America by forgetting details. Because trust is the most expensive thing in a room full of stock options. I ran through the launch deck, line by line, checked that the compliance disclosures were still tethered to the correct metadata, verified the order of my talking points and partner-specific callouts. Our beta had converted 3 federal contracts. That wasn't luck. That was architecture, mine. At 8:52 a.m., I took a breath. At 8:55, I made my way toward the boardroom. Every step felt like a countdown. Not nerves exactly, just energy, like the edge of something. I passed the new director of product engagement, who gave me a nod like he knew he'd be quoting me in meetings for the next 6 months. One intern even stood up a little straighter when I walked by. Good. Respect's the one thing they can't rebrand out of your title. By the time I reached the boardroom doors, I could already hear the hum of the screens, the tap of someone checking their slides, the soft laughter of execs warming up for the circus. Except none of that was there. The room was dark, cold, empty. Just leather chairs and ghost lights blinking from a projector that wasn't even plugged in. I blinked, checked my phone, no alerts, no calendar changes, nothing, and then I heard it, a chuckle, slow, casual, cruel. I turned around and there he was, Preston Laura, Chief Product Officer, standing like a budget Bond villain with a Starbucks cup and a smirk. Oh, he said, stretching the word out like taffy. Didn't you hear? We bumped the launch to yesterday. Went great, you were missed. He tossed something my way. I caught it on instinct, a flash drive. That's the deck we used. Figured I'd save you the trouble of prepping, he said, walking off like the hallway owed him a standing ovation. I stared at the drive in my hand, something in my chest twisted. The boardroom was empty, and I wasn't. I stood there like an idiot, clutching that flash drive like it was a live grenade with no pin. The boardroom behind me, sterile and silent, smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and betrayal. No click of laptop keys, no hum of screens warming up. Just that ambient corporate dead air, the kind you only notice when someone scrubbed your fingerprints off the scene of the crime. Preston didn't even flinch, just leaned against the doorframe like he was posing for a magazine no one asked for. His coffee sleeve had a motivational quote on it, something like success is showing up. I almost laughed. Almost, oh, didn't you hear? He said, tone dipped in smarm and soy milk. We moved it up. Yesterday, went great. I opened my mouth, closed it. Something cold unfurled in my chest, not anger, not yet, just the quiet, terrifying realization that someone had hit send on everything I'd built and did it without me. He didn't wait for response. Just held up his cup in a mock toast and added, don't worry. I gave you credit. Kinda. We trimmed the jargon, made it digestible for the partner teams. Legal gave us a thumbs up. He winked. I finally managed to speak. Legal saw that version. He grinned. Sure, sure. Legal saw a version, and with that he walked away, leaving me with a lump of plastic in my hand and a pounding in my ears. I backed into the boardroom, flicked the light switch. Nothing. The screens weren't even plugged in. The whiteboard still had someone's to-do list from last Friday scrawled across it in green expo marker. I dropped into a chair and stared at the flash drive. Okay, let's do this the old-fashioned way. I popped the drive into my laptop. It auto-loaded a file titled Partner Pitch Final V4 Approved, a title that felt like a passive-aggressive stab from a ghostwriter who'd never been in a real meeting. I skimmed the opening slides. They were my slides, sure, The bones were there, but the flesh was wrong. Gone were the architecture overlays. The redline compliance notations, deleted. Entire modules stripped out, anything related to backend security, federal-specific customization, or integration pathways, vanished. Partner-specific attribution, flattened into a bland catch-all. They had Frankensteined my launch into a marketing pamphlet, a PowerPoint lobotomy. Slide 9, features breakdown, no attribution to proprietary architecture. No reference to the test environments I spent 3 months personally debugging at 3 a.m. Slide 12. Contractual clauses, NDA versioning, gone, just gone. Slide 14. Compliance flow, I actually laughed, out loud. He had replaced it with a stock image of a handshake. I stared at that image for a long, long time. Then I scrolled to the footer, no sign-off from me. No version tracking metadata. No release timestamp from my chain of custody, not even a placeholder. They'd pushed this out like it was the launch document. Used it in my absence, in my name, without my damn name, and in doing so, they broke the chain. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, mind racing. Clause 6.4. The one everyone told me was outdated, archaic, overkill. The one that said no partner-facing document involving proprietary architecture could be distributed externally without my sign-off. The one I'd slipped in back when they offered me a title bump but no raise, thinking it was just another thing no one would notice until it mattered. It mattered now. I looked out through the boardroom glass. People were moving around out there. Phones ringing. Deals being closed, plans being made, but none of them knew what was about to hit. I closed my laptop, walked out without a word, not to HR, not to Preston, not to Jamie, straight to my office, sat down, opened the folder labeled Contracts Exec Addendums 2022, scrolled to Clause 6.4, verified the language, verified the version enforcement, verified the timestamping chain. I didn't cry, I didn't curse. I opened Outlook. New email, to legal at Farewell internal subject. Clause 6.4 enforcement request attachment, deck version metadata, authorization keychain, version comparison report. I hit send. Then I leaned back, crossed my arms, and stared at the flash drive sitting on the edge of my desk like a confession. They thought silence meant surrender. But sometimes it's just the sound right before the trap springs shut. I didn't say a word as I walked back down that hallway. Not when Bria from marketing waved, not when the director of finance gave me that same look you give a stray dog, curious, maybe even pitying, but definitely not stopping to help. I ignored Jamie's raised eyebrows as I passed his desk, his eyes flicking from my face to the empty boardroom behind me, then back again. He opened his mouth, probably to ask what the hell just happened, but I didn't stop. I didn't blink, I just walked. The truth is, rage isn't loud, not the real kind, not the kind that roots itself in your spine and spreads outward like frostbite. It's quiet, cold, surgical, a pressure that builds without warning and doesn't explode, it calcifies. And as I closed my office door behind me, turned the lock, and sat down at my desk, I felt every inch of it crystallizing. I slid the flash drive back into my laptop. This time, I ran a full comparison, not just the slide deck layout. I went straight into the file structure, metadata timestamps, embedded author notes. I wasn't looking for what was there. I was cataloging what wasn't. Slide by slide, line by line, I watched months of work vanish in real time. My version, the final, authorized build, had IP disclaimers tailored to each of our 5 external partners, each one signed off by their respective legal teams. Gone. The compliance slide, gone. The mandatory data lineage report for federal-level audits, gone. They'd replaced it with a half-baked process diagram that looked like it was cooked up in Canva 5 minutes before showtime. Even the embedded encryption key that validated which version of the deck had been greenlit through the proper security channel, stripped out. They didn't even try to fake it. They just deleted it and hoped no one would notice. But someone had to notice. Someone had to review this and wave it through. Or no one did. And Preston just rammed it through like the smug little power cosplayer he always was, more interested in looking like a genius than being one. I opened the audit log of version approvals. My credentials didn't appear anywhere on the file they used. That meant one thing: Preston had bypassed both the compliance sign-off and the technical validation path, which made the release not just unethical, it made it invalid. And under Clause 6.4, it made it illegal. See, Clause 6.4 wasn't some HR buzzword or bureaucratic fluff. It was a kill switch. A legal deadman's trigger built into my executive agreement, negotiated during a window when Farewell was desperate to keep me from jumping ship. It gave me final control over the public release of any asset tied to the proprietary systems I architected. No valid timestamp, no Olivia sign-off, no go-to-market, period. It was insurance. Not just for me, for the integrity of the product, for the partners who trusted us, for the future clients who'd be betting their infrastructure on this platform. But Farewell, in its infinite brilliance, had just pulled the trigger on a ghost deck. And now they were going to find out what that cost. I sat still for a moment, let it sink in. Then I reached down and pulled out the heavy folder from my bottom drawer. Exec Contract Archive, Olivia Palmer. Inside, everything was intact. The original language, the addendum authorizations. My copy, countersigned, notarized, timestamped. Clause 6.4. No external release of any technical material tied to proprietary architecture shall be deemed authorized without A. Author signatory approval, B. Verification of versioning integrity, and C. Compliance timestamp chain validation. In the absence of these three components, said material shall be considered null, void, and subject to recall enforcement within 24 hours of discovery. They'd messed with the wrong three components, and they'd handed it to me on a flash drive. I placed the folder next to my keyboard, opened Outlook, new email, to internal legal at Farewell Systems, CC, blank subject, clause 6.4, enforcement request. I typed the body in 2 lines. Attached documents follow. Please confirm receipt. Enforcement requested under current contractual standing. Attached, deck comparison metadata delta, addendum 6.4 signed, compliance validation logs, partner version approval chain. I hovered over send, then clicked it. That was it. No tears, no tantrum, no office confrontation with flying chairs and HR referees. I didn't even text Jamie. Instead, I shut the folder, closed Outlook, and for the first time in 16 months, I reclined in my chair and did absolutely nothing. The machine had already started turning, and I knew exactly which gear they'd stripped. At 7:29 a.m., the conference room on the 12th floor was quiet except for the whirring of the A/C vents and the faint shuffle of legal binders being opened. The blinds were still drawn, casting pale blue stripes across the long table, the kind of lighting you associate with bad news or last-minute damage control. I was already seated, coffee in hand, watching the door like it owed me something. The only other people in the room were 3 members of legal, our compliance analyst Mira, and the VP of risk who looked like he hadn't slept. Nobody spoke much. They were waiting for Preston. His name was on the invite, bolded, but the man himself, nowhere to be found. He didn't show. Not even a running late email. Not even a proxy. And that, more than anything, told me exactly how seriously he was taking it. The review began without him. Mira opened with a dry cough and said, as of 6:42 a.m., we have confirmation from partner node logs that the distributed version of the launch deck did not originate from the secure sign-off repository. It bypassed both validation and timestamping protocols. No one interrupted her. She went on, per clause 6.4, this qualifies as an unauthorized release of proprietary technical material. The attached version used in the launch was not approved by the author nor tracked through standard governance. Legal followed with their piece. We're treating this as a breach, said Aaron from legal, his tone just this side of neutral. Protocol dictates immediate escalation to the Office of Compliance and internal freeze of the released material until attribution can be validated or nullified. The risk VP groaned softly and rubbed his temples. Next steps include outreach to all federal and corporate partners who received the deck. We'll have to inform them the document was released without proper signatory clearance and may contain invalid technical assertions. Another pause. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. They knew who had filed the enforcement, and they knew exactly what it meant. Olivia, Mira said, turning slightly toward me, do you have anything you want to add for the record? I shook my head. Calm, measured. Everything's in the metadata comparison. That was it. The meeting ended 20 minutes later with a flurry of hushed tones and phones buzzing. People left with their backs stiff, like they'd just been told to walk across a frozen lake with cracks forming underfoot. By noon, the ripple had become a wave. I watched from my office as Preston strolled in late, sunglasses on like he was still riding high from yesterday's launch, only to be intercepted by the VP of Risk and marched into an adjacent conference room with a folder under each arm. By 1:30 p.m., partner teams had begun to respond. The first came from a federal liaison. A polite but direct request. Please confirm the version used during the launch was reviewed and authorized through the agreed-upon compliance chain. We note discrepancies from our previously approved build. The second was less polite. We've suspended invoice scheduling until versioning issues are resolved. Please advise if this delay will impact your deliverables. The third came from our largest partner, a defense-adjacent entity that didn't mess around with ambiguity. Due to compliance concerns, we've halted internal rollout of the Farewell suite pending legal clarity. If resolution is not provided within 72 hours, we will retract onboarding. The notifications hit inboxes like gunfire, and suddenly, nobody was looking smug anymore. People started poking their heads into my office. Soft knocks, awkward smiles, questions they didn't really want answers to. I gave them nothing. Silence was my seatbelt now. Buckled in, steady, watching the wreck from inside a steel cage of foresight. By 3:15 p.m., I went to refill my coffee. The break room was empty, save for Chief Counsel Harper pacing the hallway on his phone. He saw me, ended the call, and stepped forward. He looked like someone who just got told his parachute was decorative. You actually filed it, he said, half disbelieving, half impressed. I sipped my coffee and gave him the kind of nod that ends conversations before they start. You know what this means, he added, his voice quieter now. I did. It meant the launch had been a farce. It meant compliance would trigger a red flag in our investor portal. It meant every executive who signed off on Preston's deck was now exposed. But more than that, it meant I hadn't lifted a single finger to destroy them. I just let the contract do it for me. Harper stared a second longer, then turned and walked away like the hallway had grown teeth. And me? I walked back to my office, closed the door, and waited for the sound of Preston's world cracking open. Preston waited until most of the floor cleared out for lunch before making his move. I saw his reflection in my office window before I heard him, shoulders puffed, smile tight, that same coffee cup in hand like it was a security blanket. He knocked once, then didn't wait for an answer. Hey, he said, drawing it out like we were college buddies who just bumped into each other at tailgate instead of, whatever this was, you got a sec? I didn't bother looking up, just closed the report I'd been reading and swiveled my chair slowly toward him. I kept my face blank, neutral, just enough eye contact to let him know I was listening, not enough to suggest I cared. He took it as an opening. Okay, he said, stepping in, hands up like I might be mid-swing, so look, I get it, the launch got messy, but the deck's already out there. Partners loved it. We even got a nice write-up in market side this morning, gave you full credit, by the way. I tilted my head. Did I? His smile flickered. You're listed, he said, tone dipping into defensive. They used your title. They even mentioned your role in development. But not my content, I replied, voice calm, almost bored. Not my version, not my sign-off, and not my structure. He waved that off like I was being dramatic. Look, Olivia, the meat was still yours. We just dressed it differently. You know how these things go. Everyone edits. It's a team effort. I just stared at him. Didn't flinch. Didn't blink. There's a kind of silence that makes men like Preston sweat. It's not loud. Doesn't come with yelling or crying or legal threats shouted across a boardroom. It's the stillness of someone who knows exactly how deep you've buried your own body and is just waiting for the others to find the shovel. That kind. He shifted his weight. I mean, let's not blow this out of proportion. We've all moved fast before. Hell, legal didn't even flag anything they did, I said. He froze. They flagged it. Yesterday. After I filed the enforcement clause. He blinked. You filed that thing? That's real? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Preston made a weird sound in his throat, like a mix between a cough and a scoff. Okay, so what now? You gonna sue the company? Tank the whole launch? I stared at him a moment longer. Then calmly, I said, you already did. He opened his mouth, then closed it. The panic hadn't set in yet, not fully, but it was circling. He backed out with a tight smile and some half-muttered nonsense about looping back later. I turned back to my screen before the door even clicked shut. By 3 p.m., the CEO knew. How? No clue. Probably the investor call. Maybe the federal rollback. Maybe Harper finally decided it wasn't worth shielding Preston anymore. Either way, the elevator dinged, and suddenly the air got that weird, heavy texture it gets when someone 3 pay grades above you enters the room pretending they're not panicking. I caught a glimpse of the CEO through the glass, talking to HR, lips pursed like he was sucking on a lemon, one hand on his hip, the other jabbing toward the legal suite. At 3:12 p.m., my phone buzzed. Internal message from HR. We'd love to set up a mediation meeting to clear the air and find a path forward. We're confident this is all just a misunderstanding. We value you. I didn't reply. At 3:17 p.m., Legal's group inbox pinged everyone with a canned statement. No further comment at this time, which meant one thing: they'd lawyered up against themselves. At 4:02 p.m., Mira, the compliance officer, walked out with her plants in a cardboard box. No fuss, no tears, just straight down the hallway, eyes ahead, mouth set in that tight, miserable line of someone who'd warned them and been ignored. At 4:30 p.m., I went to grab tea from the break room and overheard Preston trying to be funny in front of the marketing team. Well, I guess we're in the market for a new launch strategist, he said, laughing too loud like he was trying to jump ahead of the story. No one laughed, not even the intern. They just stared at him, then at me, then looked away. He caught my eye on the way out and smiled like he still thought this was chess and not a demolition derby. Crazy day, huh? He said, winking. I took a sip of tea. You should probably update your resume. The color drained from his face so fast it was almost art. I left him standing there in that silence he hated so much because it wasn't just uncomfortable anymore. It was coming. By Friday morning, the silence had metastasized. No more friendly nods. No more slack gifts. The floor had gone corpse cold, like someone had shut off the building's oxygen and nobody wanted to be the first to gasp. Conversations halted when I passed by, not out of malice but self-preservation. It was like being radioactive. Everyone could feel the fallout coming. No one wanted to stand too close when the alarms started blaring. And then they did. At 9:06 a.m., an email hit the company-wide finance distribution list from a federal agency. Subject line: Payment hold notification contract line item #3487FER. We are temporarily pausing disbursement on all outstanding Farewell invoices pending clarification of signatory protocol related to launch documentation received October 2nd. I watched Jamie read it at his desk. His lips moved as he reread it twice, then his eyes slowly lifted to meet mine. He didn't say a word, just nodded. He got it now. At 9:21 a.m., another message came in. This one from a procurement liaison at a major healthcare tech partner. Hi team, we're reviewing the technical attribution slides included in your recent deck. There appear to be discrepancies compared to our previously approved build. Can you confirm which individual had final editorial control over the version shared with us? And the third blow landed at 10:17 a.m. NDA renewal for Q4 deliverables has been canceled by request of legal oversight. We've been advised to reassess all third-party material associated with Farewell's October 2nd launch. Please consider this our formal withdrawal from contract extension discussions. It wasn't even lunchtime, and 3 of our top 5 strategic partners were either frozen, spooked, or halfway out the door. All it took was a little sunlight and a little silence. 11 o'clock a.m., the floor was in full damage control mode. Preston stopped pretending. He was sweating visibly now, actual pit stains cutting through his casual Friday button-down. He shuffled between legal and partnerships like a man trying to defuse a bomb with oven mitts. I caught him in the hallway outside the CEO's glass office. He didn't speak this time. Just looked at me with the eyes of a man who realized the lock he picked was connected to a landmine. Inside the office, the CEO was mid-sentence when the director of partnerships, Cam Whitaker, tall guy, always carried a Yeti mug like it was a badge of honor, slammed the door shut behind him. I couldn't hear everything, but his voice carried. You told me Olivia was consulted, he snapped. You guaranteed it. I put my name on that contract. I told them this was locked and clean and federally compliant. A pause, then louder. She wasn't even in the damn room. I couldn't see the CEO's face, but I saw his fingers twitching against the desk like he was trying to summon some kind of corporate genie that only appeared for rich men in suits. Spoiler, no one was coming. At 11:35 a.m., the CEO tried calling me. I let it ring. Twice. No voicemail, no response. Then again at 12:10 p.m. Still nothing. My silence wasn't tactical at that point, it was spiritual. Like I'd gone full zen while the rest of them clawed their way toward the surface, mouths full of water, not realizing I was the one holding the drain plug. The real panic didn't bloom until legal told the exec team what they couldn't say. No statement, Harper had told them, voice clipped and exhausted. Not until we confirm the extent of exposure. Translation: you don't even know how deep you're buried yet, so shut up before you dig further. By 2 o'clock p.m., I saw Preston hunched over in the micro kitchen, stirring his coffee with a plastic knife, because apparently even the spoons didn't want to be associated with him. He looked like a man freshly introduced to consequences. Not fear exactly, he wasn't smart enough for that yet, but something close. Like his world had been spinning on a lie so long he forgot gravity still applied. Across the floor, conversations started changing tone. Nobody asked me questions anymore, they just watched. Like I had grown horns or wings, they weren't sure which. But they knew one thing for certain: I wasn't just the person who built the launch. I was the person who could kill it. The internal review was scheduled for 8:30 a.m., but people started filing into the glass-walled conference room by 8:10, clutching notebooks like flotation devices and whispering in the kind of anxious tones you usually hear in hospitals or courtrooms. Nobody brought muffins. No one dared joke. The scent of expensive cologne clashed awkwardly with the stale fear of being caught complicit. I wasn't there, didn't need to be. Everything that mattered was already in the documents. Harper, Farewell's general counsel, sat at the head of the table. His face, normally impassive, had taken on the taut expression of someone who'd been up all night preparing a statement he knew would detonate careers. His tie was crooked. His shirt sleeves rolled to the elbow. No performative corporate pageantry today. This was trench warfare. The first 10 minutes were a swirl of nervous throat clears, jargon-laced diversions, and a last-ditch attempt by Preston to spin the launch as accelerated innovation alignment. I heard that phrase later from Jamie, who sat 2 doors down and could hear every syllable through the glass. Olivia was looped in, Preston insisted, louder now, voice high and defensive. She had access to the draft folders. I mean, maybe she didn't reply, but she was copied. Harper didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The timestamped version she approved, he said flatly, differs from what was released. Silence. Then a few paper shuffles. Someone coughed. Clause 6.4, Harper continued, was active and unaltered in her executive contract. The launch was conducted without authorized signatory approval. This constitutes a breach of internal compliance protocol, invalidates the document standing with federal partners, and exposes the company to potential legal liability. Preston blinked like he'd just been punched underwater. But, I mean, she's part of the team. This was a misunderstanding. A breakdown in communication. Olivia's not litigious. Harper didn't blink. She didn't sue Preston, she enforced. A new kind of quiet settled over the room. The kind that comes when the last light bulb finally flickers out. From what I was told later, Preston's mouth opened and closed 3 times, like he wanted to ask what that meant but already knew the answer and just couldn't bring himself to say it out loud. Then someone, probably from partnerships, asked the question everyone else was thinking. So, the launch is? What? Reversible, Harper sighed, a deep, tired exhale that carried months of ignored warnings. It's already been reversed. Federal partners have begun pulling materials. The content was unauthorized. Olivia filed the enforcement clause before the partners initiated withdrawal. Another voice. Why didn't anyone know? And that was the heart of it, wasn't it? They'd built an entire event around a lie that the woman who carried the backbone of the product had nodded, smiled, and co-signed the circus. But I never nodded, never smiled, and I sure as hell didn't co-sign. I had simply waited, and then signed the only thing that mattered. Outside that room, I sat at my desk, rereading a message from a federal compliance liaison. Thank you for your clarity and timeliness. Your enforcement notice allowed us to act proactively. If your availability allows, our office would like to discuss next phase solutions with you directly. I closed the message. On my other screen, Slack was pinging. Word had gotten out. Apparently, during the review meeting, someone had projected the full enforcement request on screen, my name in bold at the top, the metadata logs lined up in tidy, undeniable rows underneath. One by one, people saw it. A few even took screenshots. No one denied it now. Couldn't. Not after legal laid it bare. The launch was never Olivia's. And the lie, that thin, gaslight-flavored fog Preston had spread through half the company, was unraveling like cheap polyester in a hurricane. Later, when he passed by my office, he didn't stop. He didn't smile, didn't joke, just kept walking head down as if afraid I might speak his name and trigger another clause. He was right to be afraid. I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't need to be. I had already spoken. And the whole damn company heard it. By Monday morning, Farewell looked less like a tech firm and more like the losing end of a congressional hearing. The press release they'd posted just 4 days earlier, the one with the flashy headlines, buzzwords, and Preston's bloated quote about driving future-forward transformation, vanished from their site before sunrise. Dead link. 404. No redirect, just digital vapor where there used to be ego. Jamie, bless him, forwarded me a screenshot of it getting yanked from our partner forums. One of the agencies had even posted a terse update below the takedown notice. We have retracted co-branded launch material at the request of Farewell Systems pending internal resolution. That's corporate speak for. They screwed up and we're not going down with them. By 10 o'clock a.m., every partner site that had shared the launch deck, posted a blog, or uploaded a celebratory graphic had quietly scrubbed it, like the whole thing never happened. I saw cached versions still floating around in Google's shadow zones, but give it 48 hours and even those would be gone. Erased like an accident no one wanted to admit they were part of. The dominoes kept falling. An investor call was leaked. Someone's assistant probably forgot to mute while streaming. The tone wasn't panicked. Not yet, but it was close. You could hear the CFO trying to contain it, voice tight, listing unforeseen compliance discrepancies like they were hiccups instead of a slow-motion explosion. By noon, he was on his second attempt to get to me. First came the formal outreach. We'd like to invite you to a closed-door conversation to ensure alignment and clarity regarding your concerns. This is not disciplinary, just a good faith discussion. I didn't reply. An hour later, a personal message, Olivia. I understand things have gotten complicated, but we need to talk. One-on-one, please just give me 10 minutes. Back channel, off record, delete, no response. I'd said what I needed to say with a timestamp, a signature, and a clause so clean it was practically bulletproof. They didn't want to talk to me. They wanted to negotiate with a ghost, but I wasn't dead. I was just done. That afternoon, an internal access-controlled memo leaked. Only a few people had clearance to see it, but that doesn't mean much in a company where trust dies faster than stock options. The memo confirmed it. My executive agreement included a retention clause with full indemnity protection. Meaning, I couldn't be blamed, I couldn't be billed, and I couldn't be touched, not without turning the breach into a second lawsuit before the first one even cooled. I read that line 3 times just to savor it. By 4 o'clock p.m., someone on the HR team, probably bored, probably too new to realize their screen was visible, accidentally flashed the job listing dashboard in a shared Zoom call. Preston's role was posted. They didn't even use his title. Just executive product lead, temporary backfill pending Q1 review. No photo, no flair. Just corporate death in Helvetica. Jamie messaged me a minute later. Guess they found a spoon for him after all. Hope it's plastic. I didn't respond. I didn't smile, because this part wasn't about me anymore. It was about the machine stalling, grinding, choking on its own arrogance. Every team that once parroted Preston's launch language was now rewriting their decks. Every VP who once invited him to panels was quietly scrubbing his name from LinkedIn posts. Every call he tried to schedule got pushed to next week indefinitely. His kingdom wasn't crumbling, it was being forgotten, and as for me, I didn't answer their calls, I didn't join the emergency Zoom, I didn't show up to the off-site mediation roundtable. My calendar said oh, and no one dared challenge it. That was my final act at Farewell. Not an email, not a resignation, just absence, deliberate, echoing. I built an empire on stolen scaffolding and called it leadership. I let it collapse without lifting a finger, and when the dust settled, I wasn't there to sweep it up. The next time anyone at Farewell saw me, I was stepping out of a black sedan in front of Valor Path Solutions, a lean, quietly powerful firm tucked into a nondescript glass building across town. No PR campaign. No LinkedIn announcement with confetti graphics and a generic quote about new beginnings. Just me, walking calmly into their lobby with a leather folder under one arm, wearing the kind of stillness that makes lawyers sweat and VCs whisper. Valor Path wasn't flashy. They didn't need to be. They specialized in post-catastrophe recovery, sweeping up after messy launches, failed federal integrations, botched compliance disasters. Exactly the kind of work I never wanted to do, until Farewell made it personal. They cleared a conference room for me. No onboarding slideshow, no rehearsed welcome. Just a dotted line at the bottom of a short, brutal contract, Chief Strategy Officer, Federal Infrastructure Division, full autonomy, no filtration. I signed it with the same pen I'd used to countersign clause 6.42 years earlier. It felt like symmetry. By Wednesday, the first Farewell client signed over. No ceremony, no legal threats. They just emailed Valor Path directly. They were no longer confident in current vendor integrity and wanted continuity support options. We offered them something better. By Friday, it was 5 clients, 3 federal, 2 private sector. All of them previously locked into long-term Farewell contracts. All of them using my architecture. All of them citing loss of primary strategist trust as their reason for exit. It wasn't a mass exodus, it was a correction. Valor Path didn't ask questions. They didn't need to. The product spoke for itself. And I wasn't here to gloat. I was here to build something that worked again, but this time with the keys in my own damn hand. I never spoke to Preston again. Didn't need to. The last whisper I heard was that he'd taken some strategic sabbatical to reassess personal alignment with innovation culture. Translation: Farewell couldn't fire him outright without admitting fault, so they shipped him off like expired yogurt and hoped no one noticed the smell. But people noticed. Even from Valor Path, I could see the shift. Partners who'd once fought over naming rights on the launch were now requesting private meetings with me under different flags. Agencies that ignored my emails 6 months ago were now quoting my exact phrasing in compliance decks. I wasn't rising. I'd already risen. They were just now looking up. Late Friday evening, my phone buzzed with a number I half recognized. It was one of Farewell's VPs, the kind who used to end every meeting with a fist bump and a vague promise to circle back offline. The text read, "Why didn't you say anything?" I let the message hang there for a moment, watched the dots pop up like he was trying to follow it with more spin. He didn't. The dots vanished. I typed back slowly. No punctuation, no emoji. 'Cause next time you'll ask who built the floor before you start dancing on the table, I hit send and set the phone face down on my desk. No reply. Didn't expect one. I looked out the window at the city blinking beneath me, glass towers, cranes, boardrooms filling with people who still thought vision came from volume. They were wrong. It came from silence, from clarity, from knowing when to let the building fall and when to start laying your own foundation. I didn't burn Farewell to the ground. I just refused to hold it up anymore. And it crumbled like it always would have once the architect walked away. Big thanks for watching, you sneaky seniors. Subscribe to keep the coffee pot brewing revenge. Your ex-colleagues won't know what hit him.